Did you know that 3 in 4 Australians who are actually eligible for the age pension are either receiving less than they are entitled to, or not receiving it at all? That's not a small number. We are talking about hundreds of thousands of Australians, possibly including you, who could be leaving thousands of dollars on the table every single year. And the reason isn't that people don't care. It's that the rules around the age pension are genuinely confusing. There's the age requirement, the residency rules, the assets test, the income test, deeming rates, and they all interact with each other in ways that aren't always obvious. So in today's video, I'm going to break all of it down for you, clearly, simply, and in plain English. By the end, you'll know exactly where you stand. Let's get into it. Before we start, just a quick note. Everything in this video is general information only. It's not personal financial advice. Everyone's situation is different, so once you understand the rules, I'd always recommend checking your specific circumstances directly with Services Australia, or speaking with a licensed financial advisor. Right, here's what we are covering today. Section 1, the basic eligibility requirements. Age, residency, and a few rules people often miss. Section 2, the assets test. What counts, what doesn't, and the thresholds for 2026. Section 3, the income test. Including something called deeming, which catches a lot of people off guard. And at the end, I'll show you exactly how to find out your own entitlement, without having to call Centrelink. Let's start with the fundamentals, the 3 basic things you need to qualify for the age pension. First, age. As of 2026, you need to be 67 years old to qualify. That's it, there's no upper age limit. If you're 67 or older, you meet the age requirement. Now, one thing worth knowing. If you were born before 1 January 1957, you may have qualified at an earlier age, 65 or 66, under the old rules. If you're in that group and you haven't checked your eligibility, it's worth doing so. You may have been eligible for longer than you realize. Second, residency. You need to be an Australian resident, meaning you live in Australia and intend to stay, and you need to have been a resident for at least 10 years total. Within those 10 years, at least 5 years must be continuous, no gaps. If you've spent time overseas, working abroad, living with family, this can affect your residency count. But don't assume you're automatically disqualified. Services Australia looks at your whole history, and there are exceptions depending on the countries involved. If this applies to you, it's worth checking directly. Third, your financial situation. This is where it gets more involved, and it's why most people get confused. To receive the age pension, you need to pass 2 separate tests, the assets test, what you own. The income test, what you earn, or are deemed to earn. Centrelink runs both tests and pays you based on whichever one gives you the lower amount. The good news? Passing these tests is more achievable than many people think, especially once you understand what actually counts. Let's look at both of them now. The assets test looks at the total value of things you own. But here's what a lot of people don't realize, not everything counts. Your principal home, the house or unit you live in, is completely exempt. It doesn't matter if it's worth $400,000 or $2 million. If you live in it, it's not counted. Other exempt assets include your car, 1 vehicle per person. Prepaid funeral expenses up to certain limits. Centrelink has a specific cap on this, so it's worth checking. Some granny flat arrangements, if you've transferred assets in exchange for accommodation. So if you own your home and you've been worried about the assets test, take a breath. Your home is not included. Now, the thresholds. These are the figures from 20 March 2026, so they're current right now. If you're single and a homeowner, you can have up to $321,500 $500 in assessable assets, and still receive the full age pension. If you're a couple and homeowners, that combined limit is $481,500 for the full pension. Non-homeowners get higher thresholds, $566,000 for singles and $817,500 for couples, because Centrelink recognizes that renters need assets to fund their housing. Now here's the important part. Even if your assets are above those full pension thresholds, you may still receive a part pension. The cutoff for the part pension, as of March 2026, is $722,000 for single homeowners, $1,085,000 combined for couple homeowners. Between the full pension threshold and the cutoff, your pension reduces by $3 per fortnight for every $1,000 of assets above the lower threshold. That's called the taper rate. Let me give you a quick example to make that concrete. Say you're single, you own your home, and you have $500,000 in assessable assets. That's $178,500 above the full pension threshold of $321,500. At $3 per fortnight per $1,000, that reduces your pension by about $535 per fortnight from the maximum. The maximum single rate right now is $1,200.90 per fortnight, so in this example, you'd still receive around $665 per fortnight. That's over $17,000 a year. Still worth having. The point is, the pension is not all or nothing. Many people assume they earn too much or own too much, and they never apply. Don't make that mistake. Now let's talk about the income test, and a concept called deeming, which is probably the single thing that confuses Australians the most. The income test looks at assessable income, which includes things like income from employment or self-employment, rental income from investment properties, income from super pensions, if you're drawing from super, and deemed income from financial assets, and this is where deeming comes in. First, the free area. This is how much income you can receive before your pension starts to reduce. Singles, up to $218 per fortnight, no effect on your pension. Couples combined, up to $380 per fortnight, no reduction. Above those amounts, the pension reduces by 50 cents for every extra dollar of income, for singles. For couples, it's 25 cents each per dollar above the combined threshold. Now, deeming. Here's the simple version. For financial assets, things like bank accounts, term deposits, shares, and managed funds, Centrelink doesn't use your actual returns. Instead, it assumes you're earning a set rate of return, regardless of what you actually earn. Those assumed rates are called the deeming rates. As of 20 March 2026, the deeming rates are 1.25% on the first portion of your financial assets. For singles, that's the first $62,600. For couples, the first $103,800. 3.25% on everything above those thresholds. It's worth noting, the 3.25% upper rate is a meaningful increase from recent years. During the pandemic, rates were frozen much lower. So if you haven't reviewed how deeming affects your pension recently, now is a good time. Here's the practical takeaway. If your financial assets are earning less than the deeming rate, Centrelink will still count the higher deemed amount as your income. This can reduce your pension even if your actual bank returns are very low. On the flip side, if your assets earn more than the deeming rate, Centrelink only counts the deemed amount. So there's a potential advantage there too. The key message is, your actual bank statement doesn't determine your pension. The deeming rate does. Understanding this can mean the difference between getting the right payment or missing out. Right, let's quickly recap what we've covered today. Basic eligibility. You need to be 67 or older, be an Australian resident with at least 10 years total residence, including 5 consecutive years, and you need to pass the financial tests. The assets test, your home is exempt. Full pension thresholds are $321,500 for single homeowners and $481,500 for couples. Part pension extends up to $722,000 and $1,085,000 respectively. Taper rate is $3 per fortnight per $1,000 over the threshold. The income test and deeming, free area, is $218 per fortnight for singles and $380 per fortnight for couples. Deeming rates from March 2026 are 1.25% and 3.25%. Centrelink uses the test that gives you the lower payment. And the single most important thing I want you to take away from this video: do not assume you don't qualify. Many Australians are missing out on thousands of dollars a year, simply because they never applied. Even a part pension comes with access to the pensioner concession card, which can save you significantly on medications, utilities, and more. So, how do you find out where you actually stand? Option 1. Use the Payment and Service Finder on the Services Australia website, servicesaustralia.gov.au. It's free, it takes about 10 minutes, and it gives you a personalised estimate based on your situation. Option 2. Log into MyGov and look at your Centrelink linked services. If you haven't linked Centrelink to MyGov yet, I'll walk you through exactly how to do that in a future video. Option 3. If your situation is more complex, you have a mix of assets, super, a spouse who hasn't yet reached pension age, consider speaking with a financial advisor who specializes in retirement. The cost of one session is often far less than the pension payments you might be missing. If this video was helpful, and I hope it was, the best thing you can do right now is subscribe to this channel. Every Wednesday, I post a new video covering Centrelink, superannuation, and aged care, all explained simply for Australians in retirement. Next week, we are looking at one of the most common questions I get: does my superannuation affect my age pension? And the answer might surprise you. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. I'll see you next Wednesday. Take care.